6 a.m. Flashing red and blue lights cut through my cabin windows, sirens screaming like knives in the still dawn. Before I could even pull on my jacket, cops had me in handcuffs dragging me down my own steps while Karen Whitfield, the almighty HOA president, stood there with her arms crossed and that smug, satisfied grin. She thought she'd won. But the second one of those officers glanced inside the cabin. Her smile froze like ice cracking on a lake in spring. "You want to know how I ended up cuffed at sunrise, accused of kidnapping my own mother-in-law? Buckle up. This one goes deep. My name's Alex Morrison. I'm a nurse specialized in cognitive therapy and rehab for elderly patients. Not the most glamorous line of work, but I've always believed there's dignity in helping someone claw back pieces of themselves they thought were gone. I never imagined the most important case of my career would be my own family. Maggie Morrison, my mother-in-law. A retired law professor, razor sharp. A woman who could quote Supreme Court decisions like song lyrics suddenly found herself parked in a memory care facility. They said she'd declined overnight. Severe dementia. Couldn't handle her own life. The first time I saw her there slumped in a wheelchair with blank eyes and drool running down her chin, I almost believed them. Almost. But when the attending doctor casually mentioned she was on 6 milligrams of lorazepam a day 6, my gut clenched. That's enough to drop a bull, let alone a 120-pound woman. It wasn't medicine, it was chemical imprisonment. And right on cue, in swept Karen. You ever meet someone who pretends to care while their eyes stay cold as stone? That was Karen. Expensive clothes, pearls, fake sympathy dripping from her lips as she chirped, "Oh, Alex, we're all so worried. Margaret's not really able to manage her property anymore, you know. The HOA has obligations." She wasn't looking at Maggie when she said it. She was looking at Maggie's nightstand where her papers were stacked. Her eyes moved like a hawk circling prey. I knew right then this wasn't about Maggie's health. This was about land. 15 acres of pristine lakefront, the kind developers salivate over. And Karen Whitfield wasn't just some nosy neighbor. She was circling like a vulture. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying the doctor's evasive answers, Karen's 2 slick words. Around midnight, I heard a door click. A shadow slipped into Maggie's room, scrub syringe in hand. She wasn't a nurse. Her hands shook. Her badge was fake, her story worse. She stammered when I confronted her. Nearly dropped the syringe labeled lorazepam, 10 milligrams. 10 milligrams. A dose that could send Maggie straight into a coma, maybe kill her. And when I pressed, she blurted the name I already suspected. Karen said it was just to calm her down. That's when I knew. This wasn't random malpractice. This was a plan and execution by paperwork, pills, and power. I started cutting the meds. Little by little replacing doses with saline, trimming them down so nobody noticed. Within days, Maggie's eyes weren't so empty. By the end of the week, she grabbed my wrist, whispered Alex. "I know what she's doing. She wants my land. In the cabin behind the closet panel, there's a box. Everything you need to destroy her." She slipped a tiny brass key into my palm. My blood ran cold. Maggie wasn't just surviving. She'd been gathering evidence the whole damn time. But let me tell you, I wasn't a hero in that moment. I cracked. Alone in that sterile guest room at the facility, I asked myself what the hell was I doing? I was risking my license, my freedom, maybe even my life against a woman who had cops, courts, and neighbors in her back pocket. Karen could crush me with a single phone call. I thought about walking away, just leaving it. Pretend I hadn't seen. Pretend Maggie really was gone. Then I remembered her hand tightening around my wrist, her eyes suddenly sharp and alive, the steel in her whisper. If I left her, she'd be dead within the week, and I knew I couldn't live with that. So we ran. One Friday night during a shift change, I wheeled Maggie out like it was just another evening walk. Heart pounding, every shadow felt like a spotlight. But we slipped past the guards, past the cameras, out to a borrowed car. Of course, Karen's people followed headlights in the rear-view dark sedan glued to us like a shadow. I drove like hell, through back roads, doubled back through a car wash, cut every corner I knew until finally the taillights were gone. for now. At the cabin, Maggie led me straight to the closet. Behind the panel was that wooden box heavy with secrets. Inside, bank records, forged medical files, bribery pay stubs, and most damning tapes. Recordings of Karen herself. I pressed play and nearly dropped the recorder. The beauty of targeting elderly residents, her voice purred, is that natural death is always believable. A little medical help here and there, and nobody asks questions. My stomach turned. This wasn't just greed. It was systematic murder, and she had already done it before. But evidence only matters if you live long enough to show it, and Karen wasn't going to let us. By dawn, engines growled outside, 3 cars, men in dark clothes fanning through the tree line. Then came Karen's voice on a megaphone, smooth and poisonous. "Alex, you're making this worse. Hand Margaret over, and we can settle this, generously." The cops rolled up minutes later. Karen, dressed like she was heading to court, crocodile tears streaming as she spun her story, I had kidnapped an elderly woman, held her against her will, endangered her life. She played the part so perfectly Sergeant Williams bought every word. He ordered me out. Cuffs clamped down again. Karen smiled like the devil herself had just closed a deal. But then Detective Rachel Collins. Blonde hair, sharp eyes, the kind that saw through lies like glass. She didn't nod along. She studied the tree line, the thugs pretending to be neighbors, and she didn't like what she saw. When Williams moved to haul me away, Collins stepped in. "Not so fast. I want to verify the victim's statement myself." Karen's smile flickered. Just a hairline crack. And Maggie. God bless that woman, stepped forward. Shoulders straight. Voice clear as a bell. "Detective, I am here of my own will. Alex is protecting me. Karen Whitfield has tried to kill me. I have evidence." The air went still. Karen blanched, sputtered, but Collins was already inside the cabin, eyes widening at the files spread across the table. Bank transfers, bribes, recordings. She pressed play, and Karen's voice filled the room again, cool and calculated, detailing exactly how to tamper with brakes so a death looked like an accident. Outside, Karen's mask shattered. She barked at Williams to storm the cabin to arrest me anyway, her voice breaking with panic. But it was too late. Collins had her radio out, calling in state police, FBI, prosecutors. Within minutes, sirens wailed from every direction. Karen's hired muscle melted into the woods, and Karen herself. She stood there frozen as agents surrounded her, snapping cold steel cuffs on the same wrist she used to point at everyone else. That's where the story ends. Karen Whitfield, the queen of HOA. Tyranny, the woman who poisoned neighbors and called it community concern, was led away in chains, her empire collapsing around her. And me, I learned this much power only lasts as long as fear keeps people silent. The moment someone refuses to bow, even the loudest tyrant can fall.